this.
I,
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Nikki Clagle with Fulfill Your Legacy.
and I am Nikki's dear friend and pastor, Tim Breen, here at First Reformed Church in Orange City, Iowa.
As well as many of your pastors.
And I love it. Because as I've said to you, Nikki, there's nothing else in the world I really haven't clue on.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. You do what you do
I
well.
do what we do.
All right. So we're on Core 40, week 25. We're really happy to have you with us. And we are once again talking about the community of Jesus.
Yeah, and this is the last lesson in this phase on the community of Jesus. It's all about what the early church thought was important. And what the early church did in a lot of ways that contrasted with the culture around them. And nowhere is that more true than right here in Galatians chapter 3.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so share with us. I mean, they're coming together. What's going on during this?
Yeah, so just an enormous question in front of the early church. What is the role of the Gentile? These are our friends, they're our neighbors, but are we allowed to have ministry with them? Are we allowed to go to church with them? Can they become Christians? And as I talked in the lesson, I mean, Acts 15 is this great. If you haven't read Acts 15, hit pause, come back, and then let's talk about this. All right, ready? Pause. Didn't you love Acts 15? Wasn't that fantastic? Acts 15 is how the early church is figuring out what the role of Gentiles is. And the reason is it's such a big question is because Jesus, to the early church, is this Jewish leader. And to be Jewish meant there are certain things you had to do. You had to be circumcised. You had to eat certain foods. You couldn't eat other foods. And there are all kinds of laws that you have to follow. The question before the church in Acts 15, and it gets answered there, but it's always in the ether, is can non-Jewish people become Christians? The Apostle Paul, who wrote Galatians, was absolutely 100% totally on the side of yes. Bring them all in and make it as seamless of a process as you can. Do not put in front of them any unnecessary burdens to them becoming Christians. That's what Acts 15 decides. Now, here in Galatians 3, the question is still kind of out there because this is pretty early on in the church. And the question is, what is our identity? How do we have roles in the church? Should Jewish people be the leaders and Gentiles the followers? What's the position of men and women, enslaved people and free people? And Paul gets right to the heart of the matter. Even though outside the walls of this church or this house church or this by the river church, beyond this, we know there are boundaries all over the place. There are dividing lines. There are barricades. And certain kinds of people just can't be together. Inside here, we're throwing all that out. And so that there is here no more this idea of Jew and Gentile as being a place of priority. Everyone knew some people were Jewish and some people had come from a Greek family or a Persian family. They didn't lose that identity, but they found a greater identity in Jesus. Same thing with slaves and free people. It's just in our culture, we do not get how mind-blowing this is that you would have a slave sitting down at the same table as an equal with a master. I mean, just imagine what that would have been like in the United States in the 18th century. It's the same thing here, probably ratcheted up because slaves, a lot of them were actually prisoners of war. They're just seen as subhuman in some ways. And then also that there is neither male nor female. It's actually not what Paul says. A lot of people quote it as that. He says there is not, and then in parentheses, kind of male and female. In other words, there's not male and female, but there is male and female side by side as partners. And I noted in the lesson that this creates confusion in a lot of ways, like around meals, because people weren't used to eating together. And actually, in the first part of Acts 15 and other places, Paul talks about confronting Peter because they didn't even agree on how you should eat dinner together, Jews and Gentiles together. But Paul puts his flag in the ground and says, we are one in Jesus. And if you are, even if you, like Nikki, you and I both are, we're Gentiles. is. We're not of Jewish descent, but it's like we have been born of Father Abraham. It actually, he uses the word Abraham's sperm. You are from Abraham's sperm if you are in Jesus. You have been brought into that family. So Paul's like, we are doing something totally different here. It's going to look totally weird to the world around us, but we are committing to getting rid of boundaries as we worship Him together.
Yeah, I mean, it's not written in here, at least I don't think. If you would go back in your studies, would you find that there were a couple key things that really helped them get there, that so that we who also sit here and still today labor over these same things, men and women, just letting people that are different than us into our church, or thinking you're worthy enough to be in our church or not? I mean, what I'm thinking, of course, it's like-mindedness and those sorts of things, but really during that time, what were they doing? How did they embrace that?
Well, I think that there's one really quick answer I can give, and that is that boundaries are something that God does not observe. God crossed over the ultimate boundary, and He became human like us. He left His Father's throne above. He came and He dwelt with us. Jesus, in His incarnation and His coming to earth, defied the ultimate boundary. And so if He can cross that one, if we are living in His pattern, we can cross any other.
Yeah.
Again, the fascinating thing is that with Paul, it doesn't mean you lose your identity as a woman. I don't lose my identity as a man, that we lose our genders, but that those genders find new meaning in Jesus. That your African heritage, your Asian heritage, my Dutch heritage, they come together and they find new meaning in our identity with Jesus. So it is not that we forsake who God has made us in sort of our human form or natural form to be. It's that in Jesus, that is getting wrapped up and made into a new creation, which is complex language, but that's where Paul's at. He's like, come on, let's see what this is like.
Yeah, I really want to write a blog on that, like the no boundaries of God or something. Because absolutely.
It's fascinating. And Paul no doubt would have seen this because he spent plenty of time near the temple in Jerusalem. We have found, archaeologists have found a sign that was up at a fence point in the temple, and it says anyone who is a foreigner, a Gentile, crosses this boundary, you could be killed. Maybe we can link to that. It's a really fascinating. It talks about anyone who enters the balustrade is subject to penalty by death. In other words, if you were a Gentile, tried to worship with the Jews, they could kill you. And Paul would have been, earlier in his life, he would have been like all for that. He was, we're the Jews, they're the Gentiles.
Right.
But here, early in his career, he has changed so radically because of the gospel and his experience of Jesus on that Damascus road, the tutelage he got from people like Ananias in Damascus, that he says, no, we have seen what happens when the Holy Spirit acts in lives of people who aren't Jewish. Bring them in and let's be the church together.
That's how we need to end, and that's how we need to be.
How many different applications can you think of for that in our churches today? We segregate because of economics, we segregate because of race. People have said, 10 a.m. on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in the United States in a week. And so we've got to punch through those fences and those boundaries to follow a Galatians 3 model for the churches might be.
Absolutely. Place to end, and that's something we all need to be doing.
Hopefully this idea lingers with our viewers for a while. I know it lingers in my heart.
Me too.
And not just to think about it, but to not simply be hearers of the word, but doers of the word.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on Core 40.
Adios, amigos.